Okay, I'm back. Thank you, ladies, for your patience. Just had to get some technical, all the things recording. My name is Joy Webb. I am the engagement manager for Southern Black Women and Girls Consortium. We are so happy that you are here today for Say Circle. We're in for a treat with securing the bag. Sadrina Brown Jalil will talk about that in a really unique way. I will not I will let her introduce herself because you can introduce yourself the best. So I want to pass the mic to Sadrina. Thank you so much for joining us. Sadrina, thank you for taking your time out to be a part of the Sage Circle today and hosting.
Oh, my computer is slow. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here. And yes, I am happy to introduce myself. It's great to see so many familiar faces. And but I know there's some folks that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting. So welcome to this time that we have together, and I appreciate that you're here. This kind of gives a little bit about who I am and what I do. But I also really like to, especially in circles like this where we're having what I feel to be important and critical conversations, but in an informal and comfortable space. I am hoping that you guys are at least able to steal a moment where things are calm and peaceful, and maybe have a cup of tea, or maybe you're eating lunch. But nonetheless, I'm glad that you're here. I am these things that this slide speaks of, but I think, well, I know that I am most proud of the fact that I am the mother of three grown adult children doing amazing things and the grandmother of a beautiful 4-year-old little boy. I am both Gullah Geechee and a quintessential Georgia girl. I grew up on a barrier island off of the coast of Savannah called Burnside Island. And I graduated from the University of Georgia, uh, raised my family, my children in Gwinnett County public schools, and moved to Atlanta when my daughter started attending a school in the city called Paideia. And I have been there ever since. So Georgia is in me through and through. I like to say that I'm also part mermaid. Really, I'm all mermaid. I just have land legs for some reason. And I am both Pilates and seafood obsessed. And I'm totally committed to living a soft and free life. So when I think about or talking, or when I thought about talking to you all about securing the bag, what I thought about what comes to mind for most people. And for many people, it's about achieving financial success. And that may mean financial independence or freedom, paying down debt, accumulating wealth, etc. There's nothing wrong with that, but that perspective is limiting because there are more aspects of life that contribute to this type of success. And more importantly, help to maintain it. So I think we need to consider what good is a lot of money if you're not at peace, if you're not, really clear about why you're doing what you're doing. So today, I want you to think about, these two questions as you work through the presentation with me. The first is, what do you want people to remember you for? What do you want people to remember you for? And the second is, how are you reflecting, how are you reflecting the values, how are your values reflected in your priorities? Sorry. So those are the two questions I want you to think about. What do you want people to remember you for? And how are your values reflected in your priorities? So instead of focusing on like the physical bag, of course, we have this huge bag of money that is on the screen here. I want you to focus on what it means to be intentional about nurturing a space that will help you to flourish and leave a legacy for others. This shift is in mindset, and it puts you at the center of your life, not your money. And it creates value in your life that is well beyond what you contribute to everyone else. So again, when I am saying securing your bag, I'm talking about securing your legacy. And it goes beyond determining who you are and your personal reason why to embodying your values and positioning yourself to both live the life of your choosing while determining what you want to live behind. And so it's very important. I'm going to move to the next slide now. It's very important for us to think about, you know, how we are currently embodying the things that we claim to be very passionate about, because a lot of times we get so obsessed, right, with what it means to have the type of financial freedom and flexibility that we want, that we forget that on that path or on that journey to doing that, we also need to make sure that we are feeling good about ourselves in process, and that the actual experience is one that we, that we are enjoying in real time, not just working towards sometime in the mysterious future. So I've determined that there are 5 key considerations that you should be mindful of. They are self-care, community, physical well-being, mental well-being, and joy. And I do want to, of course, acknowledge that there are many other perspectives as far as, how one lives a life that is both fulfilling and also sustainable beyond our physical experience in life. So there are many, many more considerations, and there may be other ways that these things are described, or the activities as we get into it are described. You might say, oh, well, that's not what I consider to be mental well-being, or that's not how I view community. And that's okay. I appreciate that you are sharing space with me, and that you're allowing me to give and to share a little bit about what I've learned just in the course of taking care of my family, and learning so much about how to be a good member of community, how to receive support, because that is something that I had to learn, as well as how to be an active agent for change, to work towards solving problems that I see happening around me and also impact me. So let's start with self-care. And I'm starting here because I want to kind of dispel some myths off the bat, because I think it's important to expand the meaning. The main thing is that it is an overused term. And like most of the things that we're going to talk about, they're overused terms. We don't even know what they mean anymore. So we're dispelling some myths, but we're also reframing. And reframing is very important. We are in this culture that we're taking in so many images. People are trying to guide us, I think, manipulate us into purchasing product, into participating in one activity versus another. And so we're receiving these images, and it can be very easy to adopt meanings that are not necessarily true for us, and also to become very unclear on what it means at all. And self-care is one of those things. For me, self-care is not as simple as pampering yourself. And there's certainly nothing wrong with pampering yourself to relieve stress or feel good temporarily, but taking care of yourself goes far beyond maintenance. And but before we talk about, as I have here, the difference between self-care and self-maintenance, I'm curious what your experience, or when I said self-care, what your initial thoughts or impressions may be that I was talking about. What has self-care meant to you in your life, and how have you expressed self-care, or how have you participated in self-care activities? Is there anyone that would like to come off of mute and share, or are there any comments that you'd like to put into the chat? I think Erica's trying to comment. I don't think we can hear you. You're off mute, but
Hi, this is Trina. I don't know if you can see me.
we could
Yes. Oh,
see, but
I don't
yeah,
know if you can. I can't see myself, but I think one of the ways that I try to find. I'm off mute. Okay, let me go back. I don't. My phone is saying.
We
think
can
Put
hear
it in the chat.
you.
I'll put it in.
yeah. No, no, Erica, I think you're saying no to things. Okay, okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't know. I think that there's a
Yes.
little.
Just in case. Can
Oh,
you hear me now?
you're coming in and out. I think that it's a combination of your Wi-Fi and when you have your camera on. But I do see in the chat that you said saying no to things, and I know you personally, so I know that you have a very well honed and polished self-care approach. Um, and yes, saying no to things is, I think, the most important component of, like, you have to start there in order to develop a self-care routine, because saying no is the thing that's going to allow you to create the space to establish what you actually want to say yes to. So saying no allows us to be able to fully say yes. So any other examples? I don't know if there's anything else in the chat.
I'll say, this is Joy behind the camera. I'll say, one thing is to rest. That is my self-care, resting, unplugging.
Hi. Yeah, no, absolutely. Resting, I think, critical, and we're going to talk about rest in just a second, for sure. Thank you for that, Joy. So I want to also just emphasize that when we are thinking about self-care and self-maintenance, like, I want to make sure that we are distinguishing those thoughts, because it's very easy to to conflate them. And so does anybody have any idea on what I mean when I'm making the distinction between self-care and self-maintenance? Why I'm making that distinction? Okay, so
It's self,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, Whitney.
I should say it's self-maintenance, similar to like self-preservation.
Yes, yes. That's actually really, that's really great. Like, I think that's a very powerful way of thinking about the distinction. Um, I will say that taking what I like to consider is that self-care goes beyond maintenance. Maintenance is a temporary state. So you see on the slide, for example, I have someone taking a bubble bath on one side and getting their nails done on that side. And then we have, and those are maintenance activities. And then on the right, you can see someone eating a healthy snack and another woman reflecting in gratitude. That is those are examples of self-care. Does that make sense? So the maintenance, the things that we do that prepare our body and take care of our body are things that we should probably do under any sets of circumstances. Now, getting nails done may not be a priority for everyone, but it really is part of the package that we put together when we are going out to present to the world, you know, to do our work, to engage with our families. It may or may not be an actual self-care moment. According to Penn State, self-care is about taking an active role in protecting your well-being and happiness. It can look, you know, very different from everyone, so I want to be clear about that. But the common thread is prioritizing your health and wellness. Self-maintenance, on the other hand, is the ability to maintain that prioritization. So, self-care can be achieved during a self-maintenance activity. So just like I was saying, getting the nails done, getting your hair done, maybe even taking a bath is a self-maintenance activity. What makes it self-care is intentionality. So in the first picture, for example, the woman is reading a book. She's taking a bath, but she's reading a book. She has flower petals around her. She is smiling, so she seems to be in a good headspace. If she were taking a bath and this were a purely self-maintenance activity, what might the picture look like? Any ideas? So from my perspective, it would look like her taking a bath, like just just her in the tub, or you know, it probably looked like something we wouldn't want to see, because she is literally just maintaining her body and making sure that she's clean, you know, and not offensive when she goes into public. I remember when my children were small, I used to take showers with the shower door open, or the curtain at least open a little bit, where I could hear what was going on outside. I would have my toddler swinging in the swing, you know, feet away from me in many cases. And, you know, there's nothing restful about that. Yesterday, however, I went to have my nails done, and I ended up, and I realized, because I have this distinction in my brain between maintenance and care, I realized that, you know, I needed to get my nails done. I have to go do some advocacy work in New Mexico next week. And yes, you know, I like the look and the appearance of manicured nails, but it's also a part of just like how I present to the world. And so, however, when I got there, it was a new salon. There was so much care towards making sure that I was having a good experience, that I quickly realized that this was going to be a self-care moment. I was able to they put a warm cloth on my shoulders. They gave me some relaxing tea. The conversation with the technician was obviously, you know, it was tailored towards me. She was very inquisitive about, you know, my journey with my nails, and it was just really beautiful. And so I realized that in that very moment, you know, I was able to decide if I want, you know, what experience I wanted to have with that. How did I want to enhance this and really make sure that I got the most out of the activity? And it was wonderful, because it was a busy day and I had a lot going on. And so that really allowed me to focus more on just being present and really totally understanding the opportunity there. So you see here that the benefits of self-care: enhance confidence, increase productivity, and happiness. So from a physical health perspective, you know, there's just no denying that there is a huge relationship between self-care and a reduction in heart disease, stroke, and cancer. And there's so many chronic illnesses and also just residual effects of COVID-19 that we are becoming heightened in our awareness around the benefits and the necessity of not just maintaining our health, but taking it to a level where we are intentionally caring for ourselves. And for that reason, you know, self-care is very sacred for me. It replenishes us and it speaks directly to what we value. So, but I also understand that self-care can be difficult to achieve. We have a lot of things competing for our time, for our attention. We wear multiple hats in our communities and our families. And so I like to consider what I call self-care moments. So the example that I gave of me being at the nail salon is certainly, you know, a self-care moment that I seized in that moment. But, you know, I also could have taken some actions on my own to, regardless of the setting, to create a self-care moment. And so I could have, you know, brought headphones and listened to a podcast that I found inspiring. I could have had my own, you know, beverages or things that I was focusing on. My technician told me that people take a nap. And as Joyce said, rest is a self-care activity, and really deep intentional rest is definitely that. So anybody else have any self-care moments that they might want to share? And feel free to throw it in the chat if any of this resonates now or as we continue through the presentation. And so perhaps you've heard of the phrase, we are a reflection of the 5 closest people to us. The people in our community or inner circle influence us in so many ways. And I love to talk about community. Again, it's one of those phrases that has been largely overused. But I think that we also we make assumptions. For example, I'll take a little bit of liberty here. You know, the Black community is historically known for leveraging community to address the issues that we have, and also to promote connection and to maintain our culture in spaces where it is not easy for us to have those connection places. And so I think because that's the case, when we are engaging in greater community, where we may or may not be only operating in spaces that we're familiar with, we assume that that level of community is present. And I point this out because it's an opportunity. You know, it's an opportunity to understand the space that you're in deeper, and to really look at it from a critical eye or an objective eye. Is important to establish, okay, am I experiencing community just because I'm sharing space with people? Am I in my flow? Do I feel comfortable? Do I feel safe? And so the first thing to establish whether or not you are currently in a space that can be considered community is to consider your safety. And so I think that's when we talk about community, that's the first thing that we think about. The next thing is we do need to consider that the people in our community and our inner circle really influence us in so many ways. So let's be mindful about who we spend time with. Where you live and work are parts of your larger community, but who you engage energy with is your true community. So that could be your girlfriends, your coworkers, church members, or relatives. Regardless, we must consider who we allow in our lives and what they are bringing into the space with them. So I personally believe that we contribute and adapt to the community that we're in while we are working to create the community that we wish, you know, to live in. And I think that's really, you know, that's really, really important to think about, because it can be unsettling. Like I said, you know, we do think a lot about community, and we consider there's a lot of conversation about community, and it can be confusing because we think that if we think about it just in terms of proximity, then we can feel that, okay, is the community present for me, as opposed to thinking about, There may be the people that I'm around because it's necessary. You know, my kids are in school or in sports, and I'm around these people all the time. And then there are the folks that we really have to seek out. And so I'm suggesting that you start in a space where you feel safe. And if you are new or unfamiliar, ask someone that's more seasoned in that space for insight on as to who may be already addressing an issue or an opportunity as you see it. The right person will not only help you navigate the waters, they will also make that movement happen. So, and I also want to highlight the fact that there are numerous studies that address the fact that people who experience social isolation and lack of support are a much higher risk of stress, anxiety, depression, suicide, mental health decline, and chronic disease. So a sense of community and belonging is vital for the human population, and having people support you can help you feel cared for and safe and can benefit you in your outlook on life. It is very hard to leave a legacy without being engaged with others. So please remember to lead with what you have to offer a space as opposed to what you need. That is going to put you in the best position to receive, to be quite honest. But I do try to encourage folks to really think about, like, what are you bringing to the space as opposed to what are you taking from the space. So the physical well-being is my favorite just because I love the 3 R's. And you might think that physical well-being is a simple thing to achieve. It's about exercise, right? Well, not so fast. I think that the 3 R's are a great way to supercharge your self-care, but it still requires intentionality. So let's take a look at routine, which is the first one. And that refers to how long it takes to make an action a habit. So according to health.com, it can take up to a month to form a new habit. But this requires consistently engaging in behaviors throughout that entire time frame. So if we start something and we don't pick it back up until 15 or 20 days later, we're probably not going to hit that habit stage at day 30. But if we create a regular way of performing and creating those habits, we can actually make those changes and be consistent with our physical well-being or make those changes that support our physical well-being. So it's helpful when you are ready to integrate new habits, like committing to a healthy diet. The key is to give yourself grace as you're building the habit, because you're actually not only building a new habit, but you're also dismantling the way that you have maybe engaged in that particular activity before. So it takes time. The other thing that I want to make sure that I mention is that it's also about the routines that you've already established, your morning routines. If you drink coffee every day at the same time, you already have a routine there. That routine, if you pay attention, you may be able to align your values to that routine. Does drinking coffee in the morning make you feel more centered? Does it give you a transition from your nighttime, sleeping experience to your daytime and awake experience? How does that make you feel? Why is that important? What happens when you're not able to have that moment, that you're not able to participate in that routine? It's a great way to also bookend your day by establishing routines. So you may have a morning workout or a dental routine before bed. Establishing those habits can be very beneficial. And so, you know, I think that it's incredible sometimes when we get out of habit. I get out of my habits when I travel, for example, and it can be tough to get back into it, but I miss it, especially initially. You know, if I can catch myself in those first couple of days, I'll realize that something is off. And if I can just get back on track, then I'm usually good to go. So I suggest that you try habit stacking. And the idea is that the brain builds strong neural networks to support current behaviors. And these connections can be used to build new habits. So try really layering those things into your day. So the second R of physical well-being, I should say, is ritual. And rituals are similar to routines, but rituals are actually more meaningful practices. For me, it's the more spiritual approach that I have to my day-to-day activities. And for example, you might consider taking an evening bath as part of a nightly routine, but a daily evening meditation or prayer might be a ritual. So rituals tend to be tied to the when and the how and are direct reflection of our personal values. The final R is rest. And I think the thing that I want to emphasize most is that there are many different types of rest. So don't limit to just yourself to just taking a nap. You can focus on sensory rest, mental rest, physical rest, social rest, and mental rest, for example. And I think this quote from the Centers for Disease Control really puts it well, that regular physical activity can help keep you thinking, learning, and your judgment skills sharp as you age. It can also reduce your risk of depression and anxiety and help you better. So we can like kind of put all of these things together when we look at it that way, that it's not just about being active, it's also how that activity impacts other aspects of your well-being. We all know that, you know, as endorphins fire up after a good workout or after we go for an evening walk around the block, that it can really help us to support overall well-being and have a positive effect on our mood and even on our appearance. And certainly, you know, I want to leave space for that when we feel good about how we appear to the world, it does impact our ability, our, you know, in a positive way, our ability to show up in many, many ways. So remember, leaving a legacy is not about money. It is about leaving a blueprint for a well-lived life. So next is mental well-being, and this involves one's emotional, psychological, and social experiences. We know that since the pandemic, the country has been struggling with a mental health crisis. Our children are struggling to find their place in school and their peer groups after major isolation during the pandemic. And, you know, I heard a very good friend of mine is an administrator for Atlanta Public Schools. And they were prepared, she explained, they were prepared for there to be some lag, but they are not at all prepared for how significant it is. And so as we are scrambling to address it, we have an entire generation of children that do not have resources to address their issues. And this is across communities and really around the world. So this is a global crisis. And so the toll that takes on individuals and on families as we're trying to work this out is something that we need to be aware of. And adults are also facing new normals as many are coming out of the pandemic, going through or having completed divorces, job loss, change. And then there's also the survivor's guilt after losing loved ones during the pandemic. So I can't stress enough how important it is to check in with yourself to see how you're coping. Talking with a professional, journaling, meditation, and prayer are also very helpful when trying to establish mental well-being. And I think that those rituals, again, that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, that we can establish will help keep our mental well-being and our mental saw sharpened, so to speak. I recently created an altar in my home at the beginning of the year. And it is something that really speaks to my culture, my Gullah Geechee culture. And it was important to me that I create an altar that was dedicated to it was an ancestral altar. So dedicated to my parents have passed. They passed when I was in my mid-30s. And then the ancestors that I know and those that I am, becoming familiar with because of the altar, I should say. But it's been a really great both routine and ritual, because I wake in the morning and I encounter I have a practice of encountering my altar, and I sit with kind of what my energy is indicating in terms of my day, in terms of where my focus needs to be. And then I spend some time just kind of in prayer and in meditation, just really kind of petitioning, right, for support and for guidance, as well as expressing gratitude and concern, and maybe even expressing my fears and some of my hesitancies about things that I'm going to accomplish in my day. And so for me, it is as much about, engaging my ancestors as it is tapping into that part of me, that knowingness that I have, that understanding of myself that I wouldn't normally give pause for. And so that has become, in a few short months, it has become a really important part of my day. So yes, I grab my coffee. I actually grab my coffee. I open my windows, check on my plants, and then I have my ritual time with my altar. And it's really transforming my life. So, so this quote really talks a lot about depression and the rates that that women experience depression, and the fact that Black women, are far less likely to seek care. But I want to just state that the National Alliance on Mental Illness really lets us know that this is not just about making sure that you're not sad or that you have the tools you need to face the world. People with depression have a 40% higher risk of developing cardiovascular and metabolic diseases than the general population. And 12 plus million adults had serious thoughts of suicide. So for Black women, we need to understand that it's reported that while women experience that rate, Black women are hesitant for some reason to seek that support. And so we have to figure out how to remove that stigma of therapy and seeking help. And I think the first step is going back to community, talking with your friends about the things that are concerning you is great, but there does come a point where you may need to seek professional advice. And so if we're in community and if we have safe spaces where we can at least make folks aware that we're having a hard time or that we're struggling, we can turn to those spaces, maybe not to offer us, necessarily professional guidance, but definitely to help us figure out what that step can be and who we can reach out to. So I reference a lot. My cousin wrote a book called The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And one of the things that she talks a lot about, she's my cousin, but she's also like a pretty incredible thought leader in this topic, a professor at the University of Texas in Houston. And she has coined this phrase, psychological fortitude. And what she's referencing is at any given moment, being able to take inventory of yourself and of the people around you and checking in and seeing how they are managing whatever it is that they are experiencing. And she offers kind of a Likert scale, if you will, that allows us to consider, okay, I am really struggling today, so I'm kind of like at a level 5. But it's an easier way for us to quickly and easily take personal inventory or to check in with others to see how they're feeling. So I always mention the Unapologetic Guide to Mental Health, to Black mental health, because it does provide those kinds of concrete resources and tools. And she also released a workbook of this past fall, and she is coming up with another guide that will help folks that are not non-Black practitioners to support Black folks in ways that are helpful, that they might not be familiar with. And that's important because, again, we understand the statistic about not seeking care. And some of it may be because we are concerned that the folks that we might be seeking care with are not prepared, to support and handle the challenges that we're facing. So finally, the last consideration that we're going to talk about today is joy, which also happens to be the name of someone that we all love and care for very deeply. So what is joy, though? For me, joy is a long-lasting state of being that is characterized by contentment and satisfaction with life overall. And that's a lot, right? Because it feels like it is, very much just outside of reach for so many of us. When you think about just that long-lasting peace, right? Like, I think many of us feel like we experience joy, but how do we sustain joy? And especially when we know that joy is a feeling that we choose and that it endures the hardships that we experience, those trials, and it also helps us to connect meaning and purpose in those moments. So it's not that living a joy-filled life means that you are living a life that is absent of challenge. It means that you are able to recalibrate or reframe that challenge to a point where it helps you to connect that experience to your overall purpose, to your values. So again, really helping you to understand that all of the experiences of your life, if you are securing the bag, like we're talking about, in a way that is authentic, all of your experiences you will see are connected to those values that you have established. So when or I should say, while happiness is sparked by a particular moment or an event that brings a sense of excitement, joy is a more long-lasting state of being that is characterized by that overall satisfaction with life. So women in their 40s and 50s oftentimes describe this newfound sense of contentment, but is, something that that is accessible to them now that they've reached the stage of life, but everyone can seek joy. And joy is cultivated when we listen and respond to our true selves, when we are brave enough to follow our passions and trust that inner voice that tells us to move forward despite the resistance and the fear that change just always brings. Joy is a birthright that we must all defend, and we must always consider that is accessible to us. It's just a matter of figuring out how we are to claim it if we're intentional about securing our future. When it comes to joy in the Black community, we can see this choice to live and see the world through a particular lens as an act of resistance. And it's really important. I love this quote by Cleaver Cruz. Black joy is not dismissing or creating an alternate Black narrative that ignores the realities of our collective pain. Rather, it is about holding the pain and injustice in tension with the joy that we experience. It is about using that joy as an entry into understanding the oppressive forces we navigate through as a means to imagine and create a world free of them. So that's just, to me, it's a mouthful. It's a powerful statement. I think that the final part of the quote is particularly important for us today. To imagine and create a world. We're talking about leaving a legacy by securing our bag, which is to say that the possibility is within our grasp. It is up to each of us to choose joy along our journey of legacy building. So how can you get started? We've gone this whole journey about, securing the bag. So what do we do? How do we do this? How do you implement some of what we've discussed today? So here are 5 things that I recommend you begin sooner versus later, because a lot of what we talked about is like, in theory, or maybe, a large, big picture, long lasting approach. But what do we do today? So the first thing is, and I'm going to give you one thing and describe it under each of the areas that we talked about. So it's self-care. I am a big, big, big fan of developing a detox routine. And I like to say that, immediately folks think about detox, they think about, okay, I'm not gonna be able to leave my house, and I'm gonna have to, stay close to the bathroom, because who knows? But there are so many types of detoxes. Detoxing from social media has become popular in recent years, especially because of COVID-19, and we all spent so much time staying plugged in to what's happening in the world through social. Sugar, alcohol, etc. All of those things, just kind of taking them out of your routine, maybe for a day, a week, a month, just to see, what happens. You decide the timeline. The key is to be intentional about it and really take stock in how you feel as a result. The second is as far as community is concerned, is to conduct an inner circle inventory. So I'm referring to the most trusted people in your life, who are the people that you can rely on and have proven over and over again how much they care about you, who really and truly sees you and is your greatest cheerleader, even when you're talking crazy. So I want to be really clear about who we're talking about. Who do you want to speak at you at your homegoing? I had to make a decision recently when I was working on my trust, like literally on the financial side of securing my bag and my legacy. I had to think about who would stand in the gap, for my children to help execute that trust. And so something that's significant needs to be handled with care. And so considering that forced me to immediately do an inner circle audit. So once you have the list, think about how much you are or aren't nurturing that relationship with each one of them. It would be really hard for me to ask a friend that's in my inner circle to extend themselves in such a tremendous way if I weren't thinking about, how am I in community with this person right now? What am I offering this person? How is what I'm presenting valuable to her and to her legacy? So with mental well-being, I call this one Rise and Shine with the Divine. I challenge you to get some direct sunlight first thing in the morning, before that blue light from your phone, before the morning cup of coffee even, before jumping into your email. Take some time each morning when you wake up to meditate, pray, stretch, or just lay still in gratitude as the sun comes into your room. And maybe grab that cup of coffee and sit on the porch or step outside and just let that sun come in. The physical well-being, again, we talked about bookending, but I really, really, really want to speak specifically about hydration. We are largely water, so making sure that we stay hydrated is very important. So make water your first and last drink of the day, period. Whoops. And finally, start a joy journal. This is simply a practice of writing down moments of awe, is what I call it. Moments of inspiration, of gratitude, and surprise. Stay curiosity with frustration, because if I'm frustrated with something, my immediate response is to dig into that unpleasant feeling. But when I'm curious, I can take frustration and make it a moment of gathering information, gathering data, and of understanding. So I definitely encourage you to stay curious. I encourage you to capture those moments, your wildest dreams, your goals, your aspirations. Nothing, that journal is yours and yours alone. Nothing should be off limits. Make it a sacred space for your heart to land. And so that brings us to the end of our presentation. I really enjoy sharing all of this information. I enjoyed putting it together, to be honest. And I hope that you guys found something from it. I know we have just a couple of minutes. Is that right, Joy? Maybe for questions if people have them, but I also invite you to stay connected with Sage D Consulting. We're doing some really amazing things. You can find me on Instagram with just my first name, Facebook, and of course, email. I'm also on LinkedIn, but that's definitely more formal, but definitely hit me up there too if that's your jam.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing how we secured a bag from a standpoint that's a little different from, what maybe you thought when you looked at the title, but all of it makes us a well-rounded well-being. I like my name, but joy is one of the themes for Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium. Finding joy in the journey is, something that we lift up all the way for girlhood and womanhood. So that was great that was part of the presentation. And we will allow everybody to get 2 minutes back because we are all very busy women. We know that. And we appreciate you, Sadrina, for being here, for sharing this part of your life. We hope that it was very insightful. We do this every month on the 4th Thursday of the month. It's like a mid-time break and a place for Black women, particularly, to be able to pour into one another and stay encouraged with some of the topics that we cover. So join us next month for the next Sage Circle. We also are gearing up for a big conference in Atlanta, Georgia on June the 7th and the 8th for the Dream Conference. So if you are in Atlanta or want to come to Atlanta, please look at coming to our conference. Go to our website at southernblackgirls.org to find out more information. We will have about 1,200 Black girls and women. So that's going to be amazing. And we're excited to welcome everybody to that space. Thank you so much. We will be in touch. Sadrina, once again, we really appreciate your time and your teaching today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Alrighty. Everybody have a lovely afternoon.
Be great, y'all.